Right now, I want to welcome in my guest for this hour, former homicide prosecutor and deputy director for the ACLU of Florida, Melba Pearson, and celebrity divorce and former criminal defense attorney Carlos Lastra is back with me. Great to see you both. Thank you so much for joining me on this Friday evening. And I'm going to begin by asking a very simple question. And Melba, I'll start with you. There's only 8 hours left so far in Amber's case, a few more hours left in Johnny's. I think it's enough now for me to ask you, who do you think's winning so far?
Oh, well, that's a tough one, believe it or not, because in the court of public opinion, it seems to be that Johnny Depp is winning. Now, in the court of the actual courtroom and the actual jury that's going to be deciding this case, I still think it's a toss-up from the standpoint that, Amber Heard her side did bring in some strong witnesses to talk about different things that they've witnessed, excessive drug use by Johnny Depp, violent acts by him, feeling intimidated by him. So I think that could play into the jury's decision and will help bolster her credibility. But of course, on the flip side, we have seen some blunders, unfortunately, by Heard's team during their cross-examination of Johnny Depp. He was able to connect with the jurors in a lot of different ways, just, kind of smiling, getting them to laugh and things like that. So right now, I'm almost seeing this as a toss-up.
All right, still a toss-up. Carlos, I want to ask you the same question.
Frankly, I think the needle is still leaning towards Johnny Depp at this point. And I think the difference maker here is that up to this point, we've heard plenty of witnesses on both sides that have a link to either party. They're either on the payroll or they're friends or family. But I think the tiebreakers thus far have been the police officers that showed up after that monumental day in May of 2016 and clearly indicated that they saw no injuries and no property damage, nothing consistent with domestic violence. And certainly it was Officer Cyen's opinion that Amber Heard was not the victim of domestic violence. And I think that tips the arrow towards Johnny Depp. But the question will ultimately be, once the jury is instructed onto the law, how they're going to apply that and really started to look at what is defamation as opposed to a lot of domestic violence evidence that we've seen so far.
Yeah, and that actually brings up a great point that I want to ask you about, Melba. We also found out earlier that today the judge decided not to define domestic abuse. We sort of bandied this question about what exactly is domestic abuse? How will it be defined for this jury? She decided not to define it. So your thoughts on that decision?
Oof, yeah, I disagree with that because, again, everybody can have a different definition. Some people see domestic violence, and I'm a former domestic violence prosecutor, but some people just see domestic violence as if you put your physical hands on someone. But domestic violence, domestic abuse can encompass so much more. It could be financial. It could be emotional. You don't necessarily have to hit someone. You can, throw a glass at someone. It misses them, but that puts them in fear, and that causes them to comply with whatever it is that you want them to do. It's about control and manipulation. And by not defining that, the jury may turn and say, well, you know what, it wasn't that bad, or was that really a bruise, et cetera, and substitute with their own definitions. And that, I don't think that was a good call, personally.
Yeah, that's a tough one because, I'm firmly in the camp that, words, throwing things, all of that is domestic abuse. That's the camp I would be in.